Hello, I'm Tim Harris. This is Julie Harris, and this is Real Estate Coaching Radio.
That's right. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for popping by. Hit that like button, and don't forget to leave your comments and questions so we can get right back with you.
We will. Thank you for continuing to make our podcast, Real Estate Coaching Radio, the #1 listened to podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. And let us know what you think about this video. Leave your comments below. Thank you.
Welcome back. You're going to love today's podcast. We are focused on real estate agent expired listing mastery, and this is going to be your opportunity to learn all about expired listings and why, despite the fact that there feels like there's nothing for sale, that there actually is a huge opportunity with expired listings. And we're going to be giving you an overview of what you need to know to take advantage of the expired listing opportunity that's always there in the marketplace. You just need to know where to look. But before I do, Julie, we've been receiving a lot of requests from folks that are interested in learning how to become real estate coaches. Mm-hmm. We always do, you know, but when we talk about our real estate coaches on the podcast, they're always saying, how do I become a real estate coach, mm-hmm. right? And we certainly like to brag about our real estate coaches on a regular basis.
They do a great job for us.
Because we love them. Mm-hmm. But yes, so Julie and I do have a program called Harris Certified Coach. And we don't really, frankly, even have to talk about it that frequently, if ever, because most of you are coming and asking us how to be real estate coaches. But Julie and I are seriously considering making that into a more of a formal offering. In other words, we are considering in the next, say, 60 to 90 days, actually starting a new session for a limited number of people to learn how to become real estate coaches. I'll just leave it at that, but you guys can go to harriscertifiedcoach.com, harriscertifiedcoach.com. Make sure you read the FAQs and all the rest of it. That is what we're thinking about focusing on over the next 60 to 90 days. This would be your opportunity to learn not just how to become a real estate coach, but frankly, how to build a real estate coaching business. And you would be using our existing business and Premier Coaching and all the other systems we have in place as the backbone for your own real estate coaching business. So if that's of interest to you, and we know it is, please just go to harriscertifiedcoach.com, and there's a form on there. I just checked it and it does work. So make sure you fill out the form and let's get the conversation started. And if I see enough of you are interested in it, then I think you and I, Julie, if it's okay with you, mm-hmm. we'll start another 90-day program for this.
Sure.
And it is a lot of work. And unfortunately or fortunately, mm-hmm. Julie and I have to run those sessions ourselves for you guys to get the most out of it. But it is something we love doing. You know, it's essentially when we teach someone to be a real estate coach, it actually is more of an amplification mm-hmm. of what our highest and truest purpose is, which is being of service to real estate agents. So when we teach a Brandon or a Rochelle mm-hmm. how to be a fantastic real estate coach, they then go off to help hundreds, if not thousands of other agents in their real estate, their businesses and their personal life. So Indeed. Yes, if you think that is you, if that is something you're interested in, please go to harriscertifiedcoach.com and fill out the form. And depending on how you guys react to this little informal notification, which frankly I just thought of about 5 minutes ago, we might decide to open the doors in that program again. All right, Julie, so let's talk about expired listings.
Yes, and this is coming right from the mouths of agents. Some of them are Harris Certified Coaches, but also in our coaching programs who are actually pursuing expired, having real conversations and actually listing them. This is not speculation. This is not thinking about, I wonder what it'd be like to talk to those expireds. Here's what I've heard. Here's what I've read online. No, these are actually from people doing it. So expired listing facts. Number one, again, coming from coaching clients, there are more expired listing opportunities than they thought, but in order to find them, you've got to expand your search geographically, back in time, and even by classification. That means expireds, temporarily off the market, and withdrawn are all fair game if they're not relisted or sold. How do you know if they're relisted or sold? Just use your archive or history widget in your MLS and look them up.
Well, so let's just drill down on that, because I remember when you and I were selling real estate, mm-hmm. and you and I were expired hunters, as
yes.
we refer to ourselves as, mm-hmm. and we would every morning we would turn on our computer and we would have RedX, and there's a link for you guys to get RedX in today's show description at a discount. RedX will have done all the research for us, let us know who the expireds were, let us know their price points, everything you could, all the sort of backstory, all the skinny, right, on that prospective seller. That's what RedX gives you. And again, there's a link in today's show description. You can get RedX for $150 off. That's exclusive to all of our podcast listeners and, of course, our coaching clients. Well, I remember that in our particular market, we were selling in Central Ohio, then we moved over to New Albany, and we were selling there. But I remember in New Albany, there were expireds, but there weren't really that many. So in order for what we would do is Julie and I would have a minimum standard of how many homes that we wanted to list per month. Well, we couldn't get that number met if we just focused on our little micro market of New Albany Country Club. So we would often have to basically expand our search into markets where, guess what? We really had no real experience there. Wouldn't have sold a house there. We had maybe not even any buyer sales in that particular market, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the approach that we applied to selling real estate worked whether you have good market penetration and a quote unquote brand in a market or whether you have no brand in a market. It still worked. So Julie's point, if you're not finding enough opportunity with expired listings in particular in your own backyard, make your backyard bigger.
Yes, that's right. I mean, you have to start someplace to actually have some market pull in those areas, right? We called it expired hunting for a reason. What you're really hunting for, you might think you're hunting for something in your specific little micro market, but what you're really hunting for is sellers that need your help, sellers that are motivated, sellers who actually have to sell. Even if it's 2 zip codes away from your favorite zip code, who cares? You're there to help and be of service to the seller who needs your help.
Give me the stink eye if you talk about this, but when you are calling expireds, because expireds, if Julie and I are to get back in the business, and for lead generation, there are 2 things we would do: centers of influence and past clients, and expireds, and we do other things as well, but those 2 things primarily. So what a lot of agents don't realize are that the most expensive, the best expireds are the ones that most agents are going to be intimidated by and never actually proactively lead generate to. So when you're getting your list of new expireds in your marketplace, some of you, again, are going to make the mistake of just looking for ones that you're most familiar with in your tiny little micro, MLS area search code. Search citywide and then look for the most expensive ones first and start calling those first. Because what you'll often discover is some sellers in like the lower end price ranges where there's it's an expired in a very urbanly or suburbanly dense area where there's a lot of agents. Those expireds are probably receiving a lot of different forms of solicitation, direct mail, frankly, probably not very many phone calls because agents don't know really how to do that anymore. But then in the upper end, they receive nothing. In the upper end, we've had coaching clients who are brand new agents who didn't ever they weren't even from the upper end real estate world, right? But they started going after the expireds. When Julie and I went from a marketplace that was normal meat and potatoes Central Ohio, and we decided that, hey, guess what? Our skill set transfers to a price point which is 5x what we're used to selling.
Yeah, we'll take that.
And what would we do? We went out and we hunted expireds, and we were living a good 30 to 40 minutes away from this new market that we wanted to be focused on, but we were going after the expireds. And we're going after the expireds, and this is a cool thing about a market like this, that failed to sell with the previous dominant, top dog agents. And sometimes they'd been listed, like most markets have a dominant agent and then like a 1 and a 2 dominant agent. There's Bob. He lists everything. Bob's king of the market. And then there's Betty. So usually most of the listings go between Bob or Betty, or you guys get the point. I'm just trying to make a point to expand your thinking. But what you'll see is in a market like what we're in, that you'll see expireds that have expired with Bob. They expired with Betty. They may have expired with somebody else you've never heard of. So in other words, those sellers have essentially burned the bridges of all the go-to agents in that marketplace, which opens up the opportunity for you. That is exactly what we experienced when we were leaning into New Albany, and it completely and totally worked. You guys can do the exact same thing.
Yes, and guess what? Those sellers want the exact same thing as the less expensive ones do.
It's the same script. It's the same exception. Just the sale price is higher. The commission is higher, but the actual system is the same.
Well, and I would say some of the upper end sellers that we came across were actually easier to work with than some of the ones that it was their first or second time.
The market had beaten them down.
Right. And
honestly.
And they also had maybe this was their 3rd or 4th house that they've sold. So they kind of know the plan a little bit better. There's a lot of advantages. We're going to talk about that in a second. So point number 2, again, right from coaching clients that work expireds, they report that expireds are actually nicer to speak with and much more open to discussion than most agents believe. No seller ever thought their home wouldn't sell when they put it on the market, especially coming out of the very hot seller's market that most of you have experienced. A few will hang up, but most will talk to you, and it's your job to solve their problem if they still have to sell.
You got to think about what it feels like to be a seller, to Julie's point, coming out of a hot seller's market and your listing didn't sell. It's not, you think, dear agent, that it's an analytical, not an emotionalist type thing. It's not. If you have a house, if your home is for sale and your personal home did not sell, and how do you feel? You feel rejected.
Something was wrong. What's wrong with my house? What's wrong with
Exactly.
me?
Right.
I don't know where to go.
These are all the sort of thoughts that run through somebody's mind. Yeah. So they're actually vulnerable. They're actually scared. Maybe they're actually looking down the barrel of a financial problem that's even getting worse because the property didn't sell. A lot of that going on in some markets. Maybe it's not it's a self-imposed one. They're moving up to another house for sale, or they want to move across the country or whatever. But the moral of the story is when you come across a seller, an expired seller in particular, approach them with the idea that they're probably, feeling a little rejected, and they're going to really appreciate somebody calling and giving them some useful advice. And I'll give you guys a great script. Remember, I told you this. This is a Tim and Julie copywritten script, but you can borrow it. Mr. Seller, sometimes the best homes don't sell, and it's not for the reasons that you've probably been told. That's it. Go. That's the script.
Now they're intrigued. Now they want to hear you. Now they want to have a conversation, which brings to number 3. I hear this from our coaching clients that do well on these conversations all the time. Having lots of energy and enthusiasm helps keep them on the phone for the first couple of minutes. When you do that, you can then use the script and have a real conversation where you find out what went wrong and if you're the right agent to help them get not just back on the market, but to get it sold this time.
So, Mr. Seller, had this property sold, where were you going next? That's like the 4th question. And you should take a scripted-based approach when talking with people. Don't just knock on the door or call them or having any kind of interaction with them where you're going to wing it. Because you will lose, because they will know you're winging it. And when they come across somebody who is professional, you will look like a hack. So do take a professional approach. And really, at the end of the day, when you find out an expired listing, what do we know? They're willing to hire an agent. They're willing to pay a commission. Frankly, the market's tested their price, condition, location, and something was wrong.
They're open to finding out what that is.
Right. And we also know that they probably already listed with their go-to center of influence past client, the local Bob. They
probably would have chosen over you if you didn't know them, and they've already tried that person out, so now you have less competition.
And chances are they have to sell, and they're more motivated now than when they originally put the house for sale.
Yes.
Those are the listings that you want.
And the ones that hang up are the ones that probably have given up or weren't that motivated in the first place. And that's fine. That's great. They're self-pre-qualifying. Don't beat yourself up when that happens. Okay, so top complaints that expired sellers have about their previous agents. Again, these comments are all reported by our coaching clients who are actively talking to them. Number 1, I would say, is 100% symptomatic of a hot seller's market. They took the listing, their previous agent that it expired on, and put it in the MLS, but did virtually nothing else.
Because they thought it was going to sell itself it had for, their entire
why bother?
Their entire career.
I've even heard, the agent didn't even bother to put a sign in the yard.
Or no pictures.
No pictures, or terrible pictures. Okay, so point number 2, they didn't hold any open houses. The agent said that open houses don't work. Well, open houses don't work if you don't work them correctly. Refer to our epic amount of podcasts on how to monetize your open houses.
Well, the truth is that they didn't want to work on Sunday because they'd rather play golf.
So they said to the seller that open houses don't work.
Right.
Sellers don't like that. That's one of the conversational battles that typically you'll lose. Unless a seller flat out says, I 100% don't want an open house, they're probably going to want an open house. So it's a good way to win, and they do work when you do them right.
Well, open houses, if you really think about it in context, you are putting your name, if you do your open house signs correctly and follow our system, all over a neighborhood. So you are getting free mini billboards all over a neighborhood. Yes. And then you are able to basically, be in a neighborhood where you can meet and greet potential real estate prospects, a lot of which are the neighbors who also maybe are thinking about putting their houses for sale. It is really shocking. If there was a business, you and I joke, if pharmaceutical companies could take out many billboards and put them in people's yards, that would be like $1 trillion a year business.
Totally.
Can you imagine? I mean, what's the yard space? What's a 3 by 3 foot sign in the front of a nice house advertising Viagra worth to Pfizer?
Right.
I mean, it's not nothing.
Not nothing, especially legally placed and bright colors with the phone number on it.
Yeah, and you guys get to do all that for free. There's only at the end of the day, The best marketing ever is a sold sign for sure, but the best way to get a sold sign is to get a for sale sign with your name on it and then get it sold through doing open houses, and then you get more listings. And neighbors, especially expireds, are paying attention to all the things that all the other agents are doing. This is the reason Julie's energy and enthusiasm point is very true. If you're proactive, if you're furiously fast in your lead follow-up, you have energy and enthusiasm, you will absolutely dominate the market no matter how old you are, how much experience you do or don't have, because that's what everyone's attracted to. When Julie and I sold 103 homes in our first full year selling real estate, we did not do it because we had an abundance of skill.
Little known fact. Yeah. It was because of mostly nervous energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah, but that's
half the battle, though.
We were going in listing appointments, competing with the agents who have been in the business forever, who probably were complacent, didn't even bother to have a listing presentation, and we would take listings away from them. The listings that Julie and I took our first year in the business were coming from, or would have gone to the established, contingency of agents in that marketplace, the ones that have been there forever, but they went to us. Why? Again, it's not like we couldn't say, well, we've sold all these houses and look at our decades long of experience. We had no experience.
It wasn't because they knew us from golfing.
Right. We had energy and enthusiasm, and they saw that we had hustle. Those things.
I specifically remember the first time a seller said that, and it was one of our very early listing appointments. They said, we chose you guys because you were the only agent who had any enthusiasm about the actual sale of our house.
We got listings because we asked for the listing.
And because you asked for business.
We didn't have a listing presentation, but we asked for the listing. We were figuring all this out in our first year selling real estate. Guys, it's not difficult. Those of you who think you have to have all these complicated branding and funnels and all this other Mickey Mouse, you are wrong. If anything, all that stuff has made it so that energy and enthusiasm and people that are willing to have direct face-to-face conversations have more of an advantage because everybody else is hiding behind digital. They're all trying to be passive. Next point.
100%. Okay, back to the complaints that our agents bring back about what expired sellers say. The expired seller says, number 3, the pictures were horrible. Agent pictures in the mirror, standing there taking a picture of themselves in the mirror. Open toilet lids, tiny iPhone photos, too dark, seasonal, or other picture mistakes. You guys have all seen them. I think it's actually gotten worse. For a while, you didn't have to have pictures. Now, out of an act of desperation, some of them are terrible. Okay, number 4, the seller was away from the home and came back to roaches in the foyer. That was from a couple weeks ago, a coaching call. No one was actually checking on a vacant home. Other reports of green pools, weeds in the landscaping, or other neglect. This is especially prevalent in second home markets, but could happen to any vacant listing. Easy mistake to remedy. Actually go by your listings.
There's a lot of hype that's happening around the idea that there's going to be a lot of VRBOs that are going to come for sale.
Yes.
It's possible that that's true. I don't think it doesn't make sense that there's going to be any kind of meaningful price correction with VRBOs because, again, if they've owned them for 2 or 3 years, they're sitting on a mountain of equity, and a lot of them have long-term fixed-rate mortgages. But that said, there will be a lot of sellers of prospective VRBO kingpins that are going to give up on it because the rents might not be in their particular market increasing and their property taxes are increasing. So it's not cash flowing like they thought it would. And a lot of those guys are going to be putting their properties for sale. So Julie's previous point is right in alignment with those types. When you're talking with an expired seller and they're an absentee owner, frankly, they're going to expect you to have some level of management of the property for them for nothing other than the sake of preparing the house for sale. Be ready for that. Have those conversations in place. At least make sure that you're checking on the property on a regular basis and tell them that you are, because even if they don't bring up the fact that they feel like their previous listing agent abandoned the property as soon as the listing contract was signed, if you just bring up the fact that you make it a point of checking on all your properties, not just when you're showing the properties to your prospective buyers, but as due course of you doing business, they're going to appreciate that. Think out of the box.
It's an easy way to shine. Okay, number 5, 0 communication from the listing agent. The seller says they never knew what was happening, no showing feedback, why showings were slow, etc. Terrible communication. By the way, we did a podcast about a 12-week seller communication plan.
I would say, honestly, Julie, if that's the only point that they get, that's the most important point. Yeah. We, in our listing presentation, in our pre-listing pack, we have the seller communication guarantee. Existing Premier Coaching clients, make sure you listen to the audio and how to present that, because poor communication is the number one complaint that everyone has from, when surveyed by NAR. post-closing of their buyer-seller transaction. Agents are terrible at communication. If you want to, again, have an unfair advantage in the marketplace, overly communicate. You cannot communicate with them too much. And if you happen to overly communicate with them to the point where they don't want you to communicate with them that much, well, you've won. Let us know.
You did a good job.
You get a special prize.
That's right. Related to that, and the communication thing is complaint number 6. The only communication that they had with their agent was to ask for a price reduction. Sellers don't like you only doing that. You have to do some things to support getting them the original price before you go after price reduction.
It's all about setting the expectations when you take the listing. It's all about your system. It's all about the process. And it removes all the fear and loathing. I mean, we called it the call before the call. There was ways to set it up. So Mr. Seller, in the next 10 days is a very important time while we have your home for sale. We've had the house listed now for 2 weeks. We've had 14 showings. We've had no offers on the property. So over the next 2 weekends, Mr. Seller, if we don't have a written verified offer on your property, we need to discuss repositioning the house on the market so that correctly reflects the market's expectations or the buyer's expectations. You have a conversation like that with the seller prior to asking them for a price change. Why? Because if you just hit them out of the blue with asking them to reposition the house on the market, never say lower the price, listeners. If you just hit them out of the blue with, we need to reposition the house in the market, and they weren't anticipating it, their natural emotional reaction will be, F you, buddy.
Yes, and what have you done for me lately?
Exactly.
What are you doing about it?
They're going to pile back on you. You need to do 14 open houses. You need to take out 10 ads. You need to fly the Goodyear blimp over my house, right? But if you've been preparing them along the way, following our whole entire system when dealing with sellers, you're going to discover that on that 10th day, when it's time to reposition the house on the market, they actually let you know that they're ready to adjust the price to this new price versus the old one.
That does actually happen.
Of
I
course
know, it's
it
shocking,
does.
but it
well,
does.
it's because if you give them 2 weeks or 5 or 7 days notice prior to actual price reduction, during that time, they're going to have exhausted, they're going to have been up and down their emotional roller coaster. And so when it's actually time to reduce the price, it's not going to be addressed, you're not going to be in the in the crosshairs of all their negative emotions.
Well put. Okay, and we're going to do some quick top strategies to list expired homes. Number 1, door knock all the listings that you can't find good phone numbers on.
Or if you're in Canada, there you go.
Door knock all of them.
Don't say I'm not allowed to call expired listings. Go door knock them.
That's right. Number 2, door knock and call from the most expensive to least expensive. We talked about that. Less competition at the top.
And don't be afraid of weird expired listings like big parcels of land and things like that. Sometimes those big parcels of land were just listed by Lazy Larry, and he didn't know actually some of the things we've taught you guys on how to take big parcels of land to developers, and then the developers, obviously subdivide the land, sell it to builders. You get more listings, right? Think out of the box. Think every opportunity can create 5, 10 other opportunities.
So number 3 strategy is door knock expired and withdrawn listings that meet the criteria of your buyers who you haven't been able to find the right home due to low inventory. That one is one of the favorite ones of our coaching clients because they love going to the door of an expired with an actual story, with somebody who looks for that neighborhood, who wants that style of home, that price range, what have you. It's a little bit easier. That's a great place to kind of break the ice on prospecting expireds.
Well, Matt Wilhide in Michigan, he basically was going, that's exactly what he did. And he created all kinds of transactions. They can do 6 or 7 deals. We're going to interview him for the podcast in the next couple of months.
Cool.
But the moral of the story is that there's so much opportunity being made offline by agents that are willing to do the real work of real estate. They have an enormous unfair advantage right now.
Totally. 100%. Okay, next one is to door knock the old and older and really old, expired, withdrawn, and temporarily off the market homes. Why? Because you are almost always the only one who is talking to them. Less competition. You've got to relight their flame. If we can get it sold for you this time, what does that do to your plans?
And also, guys, we're not even touching on a lot of the fact that some of these expireds, they may have become rentals. They may have become, the sellers may have tried to, frankly, maybe FSBO them. Think out of the box.
One of our clients last week door knocked one of them, and it had become a rental. They asked the tenant if the tenant would be interested in buying it. The tenant did want to live in that neighborhood, did want at the end of their lease to potentially buy it. And of course, our coaching client will put that deal together. You never know. It's an opportunity. Okay, next, number 5, set a daily minimum standard of contacting. That means by phone or at the door, at least one expired every single workday. List the immediately motivated ones. You're going to take those listings, follow up on the rest of them who are taking a break, and soon you will have an unstoppable expired pipeline that yields regular listings for you. Here's a fact. Converting just one expired per month equals at least $100,000 yearly in commissions based on the average sale price and commission in the country currently.
It's even better than that. No referral fees.
And it costs you nothing.
Right. You don't have to pay for these leads. The leads are free.
So your net and gross are equal, aren't they?
Exactly.
Strangely
you
enough.
earn 100, you keep 100, unlike many of you who earn 100 and you keep only 25 grand. Yeah. And unfortunately, that is a lot of what's happening in the real estate industry right now, because nobody other than my lovely wife and I are doing our best to let you know that you have to learn how to be a proactive lead generator. Guys, look, you can generate your own leads, an endless supply of leads that you don't have to pay referral fees on. We're not against paying referral fees. If you get a really sweet listing lead and there's a referral fee attached, that's a great,
that's fine.
If all the numbers make sense, then go for it. But what a lot of you have done, if you've never learned how to be proactive lead generators, so all you do is buy buyer leads, and notice how it's getting progressively worse because of this market. Do you notice how the quality of the leads, quality with air quotes of the leads that you guys are buying and hoping and praying actually close? Have you noticed that those are degrading? It's going to get worse. So now is the best time ever for you to become a Premier Coaching client. You love this podcast. This is the #1 listened to daily podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. You won't believe the value you get when you join Premier Coaching. Speaking of value, you can join Premier Coaching right now for free. So all you've got to do is scroll down. All of our notes from today's show and every show are down below, whether you're on YouTube, iTunes, or whatever, and click the link in the show to, frankly, join Premier Coaching. It takes 17 seconds, or you can just go to premiercoaching.com and join that way as well. It is the next natural step for all of you. Just go ahead and take action on this now. Guys, what else are you going to do? How else are you going to learn what is next for you in this marketplace if you're not going to learn it from Premier Coaching? What are you going to do? Spend more money on marketing, branding, hoping and praying, buying more buyer leads? Why don't you, if you want to still do those things, you can do those things after you've learned how to actually generate your own business and become a proactive, lead generating listing agent. If you choose to then go back and do your marketing and your branding and your advertising, then go for it. But do the real work of real estate first so you can get real cash flow going. There was a report that came out, a survey of the, I think it was from 2022 actually, of the NAR members. And Julie and I are going to be doing a podcast this Friday talking about that. But guess what? The fact is that most agents are making their money from the sources exactly like what Julie and I just described, not from marketing and advertising. What we learned on the survey, we're going to share with you. And it is, and frankly, they do a survey like this every year. And a lot of our information comes from that survey. It directly mirrors what our decades-long experience is, 20 years now, coaching and training real estate agents. And what you're going to see is that what we're asking you to do are the things that are going to put you in a position to help people make money the fastest. And if you don't believe us, look at the survey results from the National Association of Realtors.
Very telling.
It is. That's at the end of the day.
Yep.
So you guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you on the show tomorrow.
Hello, thank you for having watched this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's right, and don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments and questions below, and we will get right back with you.
Thank you for watching this video, and remember to watch the next one. You're gonna love that one.